What small thing happened in your childhood that has affected you for the rest of your life? I went to my older sister's friend's dad's house once when I was a preteen or young teen and I really liked it. Took me years into living on my own to realize I'm subconsciously mimicking the interior decorating of that place lol. I'm the oldest of many kids, and that meant that all of my stuff was always getting wrecked by my younger siblings throughout my childhood. For some reason, I imagine just the goodness of her heart. When I was around 6, we had a neighbor lady who was friendly with my mom. We moved all the time when I was a kid, so we didn't always have relationships with our neighbors, and she kept a box of unbroken crayons and some unscribbled and coloring books at her house for me and would let me come over and just sit at her coffee table and color all by myself sometimes. I was too young to thank her adequately or even realize how unusual the kindness of her gesture was, but it has always stuck with me. I have crystal clear memories of the quiet of her living room and the joy of crayons that nobody had broken or torn the wrapping off of, and the crisp pages of the coloring books that nobody but me ever colored in. I still think about her sometimes and hope good things are happening for her. I am always trying to live up to the memory I have of her and pay her kindness forward. I remember watching a TV show where someone was blackmailed after a person watched them through their webcam. I was always afraid someone would watch me through my webcam or camera, so I would always block it out or angle the screen away from me. I still do it. I have webcam covers now too. When I was a young child, maybe 5 or 6, living in a fairly urban place, my grandfather taught me how to cross the street. We had a park across the street, so we were often crossing it. He held my hand and reiterated over and over that you always have to look both ways. Even when the street is one way, you never know when some crazy person may come barreling down the road the wrong way. Not looking both ways is a mistake that can ruin, or end, your life. I don't remember specifically learning to tie my shoes, or how to cook pasta, or how to brush my teeth. All those things I just know how to do without recalling being taught, and those activities don't trigger any specific memories. But I have always remembered crossing the street over and over with my grandfather and the life or death nature of the lesson he taught me. My grandfather is long since passed away now, but every time I cross a street I think about him. And I always look both ways. My sister was killed in a car accident. The following day I overheard my dad tell somebody on the telephone, "No, unfortunately it wasn't my name." I've slowly been disconnecting myself from them. They have no idea I know. When I overheard one piece of a conversation when I was 7 years old. My aunt was talking on the phone to her relative, and I heard her say, "And now I have to babysit this fat 7-year-old. I don't remember anything else." That led to disordered eating and me counting calories from age 7 to about age 14. I still have body image issues, though I don't think it can all be contributed to that one event. But it was certainly the first thing that ever caused me to think of my body negatively. The gag is, I was nowhere near fat. I couldn't even be described as a little chubby. My aunt has issues with food and her health and body image and projected that onto me. She watched me for a good part of my childhood while my parents worked, and I was always so scared to ask for a snack when I was starving. I would get terrible migraines from playing outside in the summer that would be fixed by eating, but I always felt so judged for doing so. I remember another thing that stuck with me was once I wanted some pretzels before my mom picked me up and she said, "Jesus, do you want your ass to be as big as the house?" Like WTF. I was in the 3rd or 4th grade then. It's fucked up now that I'm remembering it. My mom was screaming at me so violently at one point in 4th grade I honestly thought she was going to start beating me and was truly contemplating jumping out of the car and into traffic to get away. To this day, hearing someone raise their voice above a normal volume makes me antsy. And if there's anger in that voice, I just cower and try to hold back tears. One day my father took away my toys. I know this sounds basic, but I was about 5 or 6 and out of nowhere my father and 6 brothers came into my room with tubs and took away everything I owned. They took my toy box, stuffed animals, the posters off my wall, my Barbie blanket, and of course any coloring books, really anything you can think of. It killed me inside, but I thought if I was good and stayed quiet I would eventually get them back. I'm sad to say I never did. That day I think my childhood died and I turned into a shell for the next 10 years of my life. When I was 4 years old, my parents used to give me the mail to open it. I was helping them house sit for a neighbor and I helped my mom get the mail. I opened all of their mail. My mom said I can't open other people's mail or I would go to jail for a long time. To this day I will only open up mail that is addressed to me. I refuse to open my wife's or anything that is not directly addressed to me. I was one of those super quiet, weird girls in high school, and there were a couple times when some of the popular girls would talk to me and ask me questions, only for me to realize after the fact that they were only doing it so they could make fun of me together later. It's been over 10 years since the last time that happened, and to this day anytime someone is nice to me out of the blue, part of me still gets suspicious and wonders if they're just doing it as some sort of joke at my expense. I tried to give myself superpowers. When I was 5, I decided I wanted to be a rowdy, rough boy. I mixed all the liquids from the fridge with all the spices from the cabinet. I then grabbed every chemical bottle I could find and poured it all into a bucket. Right before drinking it, I decided to smell it first and I inhaled as deep as I could. I passed out almost immediately and fell forward onto the bowl. The noise alerted my father, who rushed in to find me passed out. I woke up several hours later unable to smell. Most of my ability to taste is gone as well. When I was 6 years old, my father had an addition built onto our house. My brother and I used to play on the large sand pile that came from digging the basement. One afternoon I ran up into the sand pile and stepped on a large fox snake. While harmless, it did strike at me, and ever since then I can't get near a snake. Even little grass snakes and garter snakes scare the shit out of me. When I was moving states, my history teacher took me aside after class and showed me over to the computer where he showed me all my grades. He was like, "Oh, this is a B? Nah, I think it's an A," and upped like all my grades a little bit, just because. I don't even know how I reacted or what I said, and it's not like my grades were bad, but the sheer kindness shown by him to do that for really no reason, it impacted me. I like to at least try and pass on some of that kindness from day to day. My mother didn't like it when me and my siblings showed any emotion other than happy excitement. We also have to express our happiness quietly. Every time when we would cry or get mad, she would tell us to stop because you have a house, food, etc. Why are you unhappy? There are other less fortunate. Now I have trouble processing and expressing emotions. I realized I was suffering from middle child syndrome when I was about 12. My mom called me to her room just to turn the volume up on the TV when my siblings were on the bed with her. All three of them began laughing at me because she had me do such a menial task when any of them could have gotten up to do it. Then she made me fix lunch for them. To this day I still don't rock with my mom like that. I keep her at arm's length because she always made me feel like I was inferior to my siblings and never supported me in my activities growing up, but was at my siblings' beck and call. She still is too. My mom told me that if I don't stop misbehaving at school she would send me to a mental asylum. Used this threat several times. Been scared of asylum since, and when I was little I was terrified every time my parents talked to the phone with anyone because I was convinced they were making the appointment. Also was the reason I was scared to come home from school. I got slapped by a total stranger in a grocery store at 5 years old. I haven't liked people from that day on. I was super young. It was late at night. I was supposed to be in bed, but I snuck into the living room to peek at the horror movie my parents were watching. The scene I saw was a woman wearing a pink shirt in front of a Western-type looking building being strangled. Ever since I can't stand the thought of choking, being choked, someone else choking, being choked. Tight necklaces? Nope. Shirts with too high, too tight of a collar? No sir, not for me. I also get very alarmed when people are coughing hard. Usually ask them if they are okay right away. Just in case. One day I went fishing with my cousin's family, and while we were walking along the beach the fishhook got stuck in my leg. I now won't fish even if I am at a fishing trip. When I was 11, I was getting ready for another day of school when I glimpsed a strange silhouette through the corner of my eye. It was a middle-aged man watching, stock still through the window. I'd only changed clothes moments prior. He was looking over the fence, on the far corner of his patio, so this wasn't an accident. My mom only offered apathy when I told her about what happened. I wasn't asking for much. I wanted to rationalize what happened instead of acknowledging that a pedophile lived next door. Years later, I'm woken up by the sound of him falling down his patio stairs. Part of me hoped he snapped his neck on the way down, but to no avail. When I was a kid, I had this habit of telling one of my best friends who my crush was. I did this and she turned around and told everyone who I had a crush on. I felt really embarrassed, but she was sorry and so I forgave her. I developed another crush, told her, and then she went and did the same thing. After that, I learned my lesson. Now, I have trust issues. But hey, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I had a neighbor down the street from me when I was 4 or so. He was a dwarf. The older kids used to call him a troll and he'd chase after them and they'd run away laughing and screaming. It was a game he played with them. Looking back, he was actually a pretty cool guy. At 4, I didn't know this was a game they played. I thought he was a weird troll. And I was afraid of him. Once I was walking on the other side of the street near his house and he was behind the front yard fence. As I walked by his gate, he jumped out and made the troll noise. It terrified me. I ran away and cried. To this day, if I don't see a dwarf first from a distance, like if we are suddenly in close proximity, I actually jump and gasp. I've had to apologize and explain my story to more than a few people of smaller stature. I'm in my 50s. Yep, it happened about 8 months ago at Walmart. I turned the corner and saw a dwarf face to face. Ah! I yelled as I jumped backwards. The guy just looked at me and asked, "Dude, what the hell?" When I was 4, I started. My neighbor, a dwarf, used to scare me. 45 years later it still react. It's not you, it's entirely me. He laughed his ass off. It's crazy how it happens. My ex-stepdad as a kid was an incredibly abusive man towards me, and wouldn't punish his kids for terrorizing me. Like one time his son chased me around the house with a butcher knife threatening to stab me and I had to hide to get away from him. He was also very adamant about me calling him dad. Even though my dad is very much in my life, and would get super angry when I didn't. One day, I wasn't caving to his demands and he tried to choke me with his cane. Another day, I didn't do something he wanted and he picked up and threw a huge wooden rocking chair at me. My mom left the guy as soon as she found out what had happened to me. My mom is one of my best friends on this earth and I love her to bits, and if she had known what was going on, she probably would have left sooner, but I was little and didn't want to cause a breakup until it got to be too much. To this day, the choking incident still makes me very weary of people touching my neck or anything near my face, and I have a ton of sensory problems with things touching my face now. My dad telling me, "You can do this, I know you can." For the life of me I can't recall what I was doing, but the memory of him saying it is clear as can be. I call that memory up when stuff's going sideways. Never underestimate a praise. Not me directly, but as a teen in a fucked up family I'd occasionally play games with my brother since I was homeschooled and bored. At one point he mentioned he wanted to program games when he grew up. I liked programming, so I gave him some of my old computer parts that sort of made a functioning computer and installed GameMaker for him. Never really thought about it after, outside of just helping answer questions later. Giving him all my old computer parts. More because it's annoying to try to sell them. And arguing with my parents when they tried to fuck his career. More because I strongly disliked them. Little fucker made his first game when he was 12, for me, though it was practically unplayable. Got his first paying job at 15. Made more than $30,000 a year by 16. Had a game in a popular game award show by 17. Developed a unique live rendering software that has like 3 other competitors, his arguably being way more usable and in demand. I didn't realize I'd had any real impact until he won the top award in his software's industry. I didn't even go, but he sent me a video of his acceptance speech later. He specifically called me out as the only person who ever truly believed in him and that made empowered him to his success. I didn't, I just had spare parts. Liked arguing with my parents and had played around a bit with GameMaker myself. I don't actually think I helped him much, he had the talent in him. My family just tended to be really mean and insulting to him, so my careless support helped make him feel he could actually try something hard. So 3 small instances that have taught me to never trust my parents' word about anything. I asked for Dippin' Dots ice cream when we passed by the booth at the mall. My mom promised we could get some on the way out, then proceeded to claim that she had never said that on the way past the booth as we left. and basically made me feel like I was crazy and that the earlier exchange never happened. Another instance was when we were in the car and I desperately had to use the bathroom. My parents said we would stop at McDonald's, instead of pulling over, after I told them it absolutely could not wait. As we passed the McDonald's, I asked why we weren't stopping and they berated me so hard for wanting fast food that I burst into tears and had a literal meltdown. Finally got it across to them that they said we could stop so I could use the bathroom, and my mom then started to berate me about how I should have just said that instead of getting hysterical. Last one was when my mom and I were supposed to go and see a movie in theaters. My mom kept postponing. Literally on the drive there, theater directly in sight, my mom says she doesn't feel well, and that we're going home, and that we can see it another week. In this case, though, I already knew she was going to do this, and simply pointed out that it was the last day that this movie was going to be in theaters, but okay. I vaguely remember my mom going off on me about making her feel guilty, but I mostly remember just feeling sad and unimportant. Guarantee if I brought up any of these, my mom would either claim not to remember it or she'd ask me why I only focus on the negative aspects of my childhood. Definitely a lesson on what not to do with my own kids. As a small child, I got dumped by a wave at the beach and my dad had to lift me out of the water. I'm still deathly afraid of big surf, but now I surf big waves to try and overcome it. Cousin threw a frog at me when we were little and it got stuck in my shirt. Have been terrified of frogs ever since. When I told my mom I was depressed at a young age, around 11 to 12, she insisted I was faking it and that I was being dramatic, that I didn't know what depression really was. I almost committed suicide at age 13. To this day I still doubt myself and think, maybe I'm just being dramatic. I don't have anything to complain about. Parents, you might think your kids have no reason to be depressed, but depression is a serious illness that can make even the most blessed people feel terrified, numb, and like they can't stand to be alive anymore. Take it seriously. Handle their emotions carefully. One sentence you say dismissing their feelings can lead to years of self-doubt and hatred towards themselves. Got my knee hurt while playing on the street. My knee bent the opposite way and came back to place. Came home crying. My mom sent me to buy some stuff to the supermarket. No excuses. Yelled at me for supposedly faking it. I went. Supermarket was about 3 blocks away. And was crying in pain on the way back. So much that my friends carried the bags for me when they saw me. I was so afraid that I asked them to give me the bags when we reached the door, gave the bags to my mom and went to my room. Years later, senior year of high school, same knee pops. Spent a week in bed. Couldn't do any exercise for 3 months. Second year of college, same knee pops. Now it is a week in bed and the entire summer with a full leg brace and crutches. Now my knee can get locked if I try to bend it the wrong way. To this day she says it never happened. That and other similar stuff. Thanks for watching. See you later.